after degree student. Those are the streams I'm looking at tonight. So if you are in attendance for the 4-year program, which is just starting, in terms of our first intake being fall of 2026, the 4-year program is for high school students. It's a different process. It's a different admission process with different information. So you need to sign off of this one, but first grab the link for the 4-year program information session, which will be happening with myself again and the amazing student services team on December the 4th. So if you're staying in this webinar, it is strictly for the 2-year. You already have some university and or college social work diploma, and you're here to find out more about how to get your BSW in that 2-year stream. Okay, so 4-year stream out of high school, sign off. Join me again on December the 4th when I'll be going through that exciting new program that we have offered with the University of Calgary and the Faculty of Social Work. All right, let's get settled into the information. I'll try to get us through this in a methodical way. We'll see how it goes. So before we start, I want to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples of all the lands we're on today because we're on a virtual platform. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands, which we all call home, to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations, improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. I want to acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territories of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. Please join me in a moment of reflection to acknowledge the effects of residential schools and colonialism on Indigenous families and communities, and to consider how we are and can each, in our very own way, move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. Thank you. In addition to the land acknowledgement, I also want to recognize that the Faculty of Social Work acknowledges the inequities experienced by racialized people, Indigenous people, and other marginalized population, and that we aim to foster an environment that recognizes and, importantly, celebrates diverse perspectives. So as a faculty and a university, we're committed to eradicating all forms of injustices. So what are we going to go through tonight? We're going to go through welcome and introductions, which you already heard. I'm going to talk to you about why this BSW, what sets us apart from all the other BSW possibilities there are out there. I'm going to talk about what program options there are. I'm going to walk you through as best I can, methodically, the application process. I'm going to talk to you about how we look at your evaluation. I think it's important to be transparent in that. And then we're going to have a slide with helpful tips of contact numbers, as well as that Zoom room in terms of being helpful to you as you pursue your Bachelor of Social Work education. So what about our faculty? We are the largest accredited school of social work in Canada. We offer the BSW, we offer the MSW, we offer a PhD, we offer graduate certificates, we offer ongoing learning opportunities. So we're nationally and internationally recognized because we have the most amazing faculty that is out there doing all kinds of research, scholarship, publication, community work, and it provides opportunities for all of our students, including at the undergrad level, to be engaged in transformative learning and research. Our curriculum is current. It's so current. We're just starting, we're just finishing off the new BSW for the very first time. And so this will be the second offering of it. It's informed, it was informed in the design of it by students, by our alumni, by community, by our scholars, by our practitioners in the community. And it took us over 2 years to design the program. So it's an exciting time for us in this new program. The feedback from the students in the first cohort have been just amazing. So why the U of Calgary BSW? In other words, why apply to the Faculty of Social Work? Because I believe you're going to receive core courses that are very unique, and they are very current, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And they really reflect how not just social work practice landscape is shifting, but our global understanding of humanity is also shifting. And so they're very current. You're also going to learn the more traditional foundational skills and theories things like interviewing skills, group work skills, policy, how to influence policy. Those are more of the foundational ones. You're also going to embark on field education. Those are where you go out into the communities and learn from other professional social workers. You interact with the public in a variety of capacities. We've also keep our social work options, those electives that you can dabble in. We're keeping those very up to date and topical. For example, we just offered for the first time animal assisted therapy as a social work option. That was hugely popular for those of you who like furry critters and interaction with people alongside those types of the animals that are trained. So we have the whole meal here. We have the 3rd year and the 4th year. So in terms of foundational skills and theories, again, those are things like theory, then the practice skills. The options, addictions, recovery, gerontology, health, trauma, mental health, FASG, social work with immigrants. I think I'm the most excited about the core courses that are now core. In other words, all of our students take them, which are things like leadership for social justice. Certainly since COVID, the increase in the need for skills in mental health. So we have multiple dimensions of mental health as a core course. We have Afrocentric social work practice as a core course, green work and social work and sustainability. We have Indigenous peoples as a core course as well. Our new field education model has also, I think, evolved to be reflective of where students are at, what we're seeing, what we're hearing back from agencies. And so that's been an exciting redesign for us as well. So you're here because you want to know, what are the programs? Where do I qualify? How do I apply? So let's get started with that now that I've given you the overview of why I think the U of C, University of Calgary Bachelor of Social Work program is amazing. So you may have a couple of options. So I'm going to talk about the UT. UT means university transfer. Now, when we say university transfer, we also mean those people with degrees. So you're a university transfer student or an after degree student, right? In other words, you've got your BA, your BSc, as I said earlier. The UT blended program, it is blended, which some of you might be more familiar, particularly with COVID and the times during COVID, is hybrid. So it's that kind of ideal, blended or hybrid. It's a 20-month program. It's located in Calgary, in Edmonton, or Lethbridge. We're very privileged to have 3 learning communities in person across Alberta. So Calgary, Edmonton, or Lethbridge. Because it's a blended program, that means you're going to be on the campus in Calgary, Edmonton, or Lethbridge, but you're also going to be doing online classes. You're going to be on campus 1 full day a week, every week, in person, live. You're going to be doing, our classes tend to be in 3 hours, so 9 to noon about, and then 1 to 4, 1 day a week. And then those other online classes are going to be online 3-hour blocks again, but you'll have some choice as to when you take them. It might be, I don't know, a Tuesday morning, it might be a Wednesday, it just depends on the year. But you'll have some choice, not of the courses, but in terms of when you are taking those courses. It's a 20-month program, which means it's a little bit more intensive. All of our programs are full-time, and I want to emphasize that. All of our programs are full-time. That means you have to free up time to be an engaged student. So the 20-month program, you need to make sure that you have 30 to 35 hours a week to give to your study. It is a full-time program. It is not part-time. We do not offer part-time programs. You typically have more courses per term than the online program. And you're also going to school in more terms. So a university calendar, for those of you who have been out of university for a while, or perhaps haven't attended a Canadian university, we basically have 4 terms in a calendar year. We have the fall term, which goes September to December. We have what we call winter term, which is January to April, sometime in April. We have a spring term, which is May and June. And then we have what's called a summer term, which is July and August. So if you want the blended program, in your 3rd year, you're going to be going to school in the fall term, in the winter term, and in the spring term. So it's longer than just September to April. In year 4, you're going to be doing September to the end of April, okay? So fall and winter. And again, it's a full-time program. So if you have a university degree or the 57 units / credits, depending on what institution you're at and where you come from, you may be eligible to apply for the University Transfer Blended Program. 1 day in person on your campus, so Calgary, Edmonton, or Lethbridge, and then the other times are online. The online program is completely online. You are not required to come to campus. You will be doing a practicum, but you'll be doing it hopefully in or close to your home community in Canada only. So it's fully online. There's no on-campus classes, and that includes your option courses that I was talking about, your mental health, your addictions and recovery, whatever those courses are that you want to take. The classes are online, but they're still real time. So it's what we call synchronous learning. Again, 3-hour blocks. It's going to be a Monday, a Wednesday in the evening, and a Saturday morning. So you can plan for that. You'll also be doing some independent learning outside of those times. It requires 18 to 24 hours or more. I want to be really clear, or more a week. So again, it's a full-time program, but it's entirely online. You will be taking less courses per term than the blended program. So what does that mean? It means if you're doing the online program, you're in classes all year round. You're in the fall term, the winter term, the spring term, and the summer term. So your breaks between terms might just be a couple of weeks and then you're back in school again. That allowed us to then extend that over 24 months, but you are in school all year round, okay? Both of our programs require good internet. I'm from the north originally. We don't necessarily have good internet. You need good, reliable internet. You're going to be on the computer a lot, so you need to be prepared for that. I think what else I really want to sort of emphasize or amplify is that they're full-time programs. So full-time for funding, you qualify for bursaries, scholarship, maybe Canada or Alberta student loans, those types of things. But full-time also means you have to free up the time in your incredibly complex life to actually devote yourself to your studies in a full-time manner, without exception. They're both full-time programs, okay? What's exciting is that they both lead to the same parchment from the U of Calgary. So it doesn't say University of Calgary online program and University of Calgary blended program. It is the same parchment for your Bachelor of Social Work, okay? So the other question I get even before people have applied is a lot around practicum placements. Practicum placements, depending again on where you're from, they might have called it locums, they might have called it service learning, but it's when you're actually working in your chosen field, working towards your coursework, okay, learning from others. So what about those? So field education, again, if you're from the social work diploma stream, because I just want to go back for a second. If you have a social work diploma, you only qualify for the online program. And I'm going to get to another slide, but I'm going to say this once and then I'll say it again when I get to the other slide. If you have an Alberta Social Work Diploma, plus maybe you have a Bachelor of Arts, it's irrelevant. You have to make sure that you apply, if you have a diploma, only to the online social work diploma route. And why? Because of placements. If you have an approved Alberta Social Work Diploma, you only require 400 hours of practicum. Okay, that's where you go out and you work in the agency under a field supervisor. You only need 400 hours because we want to honor the fact that you already have done placements. The other reason is that the Canadian Association of Schools of Social Work Education Board dictates the curriculum in terms of we have to have a balance of social work courses and a balance of what we call general arts courses. So the general arts and science background are things like psychology, sociology, I don't know, gender studies, anthropology, philosophy, political science, Indigenous studies. All of those need to balance out credit-wise, in other words, as close to 50% of that with 50% social work specialized courses. So our social work diploma students have too many social work diploma credits, right? So we need to balance you out. So that allows us to then offer 400 hours of field education. If you're coming from the university transfer stream, you're going to need 700 hours, and that's dispersed in your 3rd year and your 4th year, okay? Just so you're aware of that. So There's two pathways to apply, and I'm going to keep emphasizing that. If you have an approved Alberta Social Work Diploma, you must apply only to the online post-diploma route, regardless of your other credentials. You might have a certificate in disability studies, you might have a justice background. If you have an approved Alberta Social Work Diploma, you must only apply to the online post-diploma route, okay? So you're going to have to do courses that are designed to help you get that 50-50 kind of split of liberal arts background and social work courses, okay? The estimated a competitive GPA is around a 3, okay? We haven't quite set it yet this year, but it should be hovering around a 3, okay? So the other pathway then is the UT, we say UT, which is university transfer or completed university degree. In other words, you have a lot of university under your belt, okay? You need 57 units or credits of that. Again, the competitive GPA is 3, and the acceptable equivalent of the English 30, okay? So in both cases, it's competitive. We get a lot of applications. Typically, the GPA, the competitive GPA hovers around a 3. Okay, so just be aware of that. Now, the university transfer students are going to need 60 units, but 57 to get into the program. Once you're in the program, you need to complete Social Work 201. 201 is an introduction to social work. Our post-diploma students don't need the 201 because they already know lots about social work and lots of them are already practicing in the field. All right, but you university transfer students, you're going to need Social Work 201, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So questions. These are the questions we typically have, and these are all of the questions we cannot answer, okay? Our faculty is about why social work, what's your curriculum, what can I expect when I come into the program, what kind of instructors do you have, what topics do you have, what does the flow look like, those kinds of things. So your curriculum plans, for example. So if you have a social services or social work and a diploma not from Alberta, because lots of our folks are from Ontario and they might have a social services diploma, or they might have a social work diploma, but it's not from Alberta, we cannot assess that. It's not a direct transfer into that online program, okay? We do not assess that. If you have a non-social work diploma like child and youth care, rehab, disability studies, again, as a faculty, we do not assess that. If you have a degree or university work outside of Canada, as a faculty, we do not assess that. Do I have enough transfer credits? That would be a typical question. We cannot assess that, okay? So what do you need to do if you fall into any of these categories and probably others? You need to apply to the University of Calgary, Faculty of Social Work. You need to pay the application fee. Part of that includes sending all your transcripts from, I went to 6 different places. You need to submit all of those transcripts. Our amazing admissions team at the university are the ones that assess those credentials, courses, all that kind of thing. They do a great assessment for you and give you the feedback, okay? If you have questions from the assessment, then you need to contact admissions, not our student services team, okay? So we cannot answer admission questions around course transferability or how many credits you'll get for this disabilities diploma from Manitoba or whatever the case may be, okay? So you can see that I'm being repetitive here. You need to apply, pay your admission fee so that you can get your transcripts assessed, but they can only assess them if you send it to them, right? So you need to send any institution that you've ever attended at the post-secondary level. Then wait for your assessments, and I'll talk to you in a minute about your student center, okay? That's where you'll be checking for any communication from our faculty or from admissions, okay? All right, now I'm talking only to the university transfer stream, which includes the after degree, right? I have a degree. So Social Work 201 is a program requirement. You must complete it. Some of our courses are have prerequisites that has to be completed before you can pass go into that next course. It's offered online at U of Calgary every single term. So we've created space for folks to get that course, okay? If you want to wait till admission, we've created space, including in block weeks, to be able to get that course, okay? So current U of Calgary students, you would register through your student center. Non-U of Calgary students, you're going to apply to Open Studies to take the course if you want to get ahead of the game and not have to complete 201 waiting for that admission decision, okay? So then it becomes, how do I apply? You can see I have another box again saying, if you have an Alberta Social Work Diploma, you are only eligible for the online post-diploma route, all right? It's important that you double check that you are applying to the right route when you actually are filling out the application, because we won't get your application otherwise, because you won't qualify for the other route. It will just get rejected, right? So make sure that you're applying to the appropriate route. If you're a UT student, you can apply to the online program for university transfer or after degree students, or you can apply to the blended program. So you can review your detailed application instructions there. I'm going to talk about the program specific questions, and those need to be also responded to once you submit your application. The application deadline is March the 1st. Transcript deadline is March the 15th. Now, what's exciting to me for the first time is that if you're a university transfer after degree student, you have the opportunity on your application at the time of application now to actually have a first choice and a second choice. So I live in Calgary, but I don't have kids. I volunteer, so it's not a paid position. I'm going to apply for Calgary, but I have an aunt who lives in Edmonton and I can move and stay with her and do my education in Edmonton too. I'm going to apply for, I don't know, Calgary is my first choice, Edmonton is my second choice, okay? Maybe I have, I want to apply to Lethbridge, but I know that I can stay, or I have a job opportunity in Calgary. So I'm going to apply to Lethbridge as my first choice, and Calgary would be my second choice. So you can now do that. That's the first time. Usually we didn't allow that, but now we can, which is very exciting for me. So as long as you have a flexible life, you can apply for more than one location, okay, if you're doing the blended program. Because remember, the online program is just the online program, right? So for the blended program, Calgary, Edmonton, Lethbridge, if you want to, you can choose a first and second choice for that. Okay. The program specific questions. So you've applied, you've paid your fee, you're sending transcripts, you're doing everything that the university and the faculty requires of you. A part of your application is what we call program specific questions. These questions were developed by students, the BSW Policy Committee, which includes faculty, our student services team, no alum, but students, and we designed these questions. So we're going to consider your GPA, which is your grade point average over your courses. We're going to consider that. But you also need to think about your program specific questions, which is 50% of your application. There's 3 questions to reflect on who you are as a person, your lived experiences, and discuss how they contributed to your pursuit of social work education. In other words, why social work? Why aren't you doing, I don't know, veterinary medicine? We're curious, why social work, okay? We also ask you to tell us about your community engagement. And this could be a multitude of things. It could be, I volunteer at my child's kindergarten class. That's community engagement. And I've noticed that food insecurity is a big thing in that school. Okay, so that would be the issue. And then what do you think is causing it or contributing to it? So we want to see your critical thinking about what's contributing to the social issue that you're so passionate about, okay? And then finally, and this was really developed from our students, the third one is, what are your hopes and dreams and aspirations? In other words, what are you hoping to develop in our social work program? What are you hoping we can offer you in your professional development as a social worker? And, excuse me, how do you envision your future practice? What does that look like? I really want to work with youth because whatever the case may be, right? So the program specific questions is a drop down. There's a maximum words per, but I want you to be clear and concise. Give us the information. Don't repeat the information because there's only so much space you're allowed. You're going to write in the first person, which is uncomfortable for some folks, but it's I. Okay, you write in the I. Make sure you read it again, correct any errors, fix it up, make it more concise, and really think about why social work. When you go to fill your program specific questions out, you're going to see that I've put in helpful links and videos and tips and stuff for you to really reflect on that. And I want to say this is 50% of your application. So you need to put effort into it. Okay. Sending us 2 sentences for each is not helpful. You need to be robust, in other words, thorough in your answer, but clear and concise as well in those 3 areas. So now I've submitted everything. Now what? Do I just get to sit back? You get to sit back because you've submitted everything by the March 1st deadline. Myself and the admissions team and our student services team, that's when we start furiously working even harder. Because all of these applications now, we need to evaluate. So everything goes through admissions, and admissions decides course transferability, all of those things that only admissions can decide that. And then we receive batches of files, in other words, batches of applications. I form, as the associate dean, I form an admissions committee. It's a variety of folks from diverse backgrounds from our faculty who very kindly agree to review hundreds of applications each. And then we get together and we compare notes and make decisions around that. So 50% of your application, half of your application is assessed on the basis of your answers to the program specific questions. 50%. Okay. The other 50% is your GPA. Okay. The calculation of your GPA is based on the most recently completed 30 units. Okay. So in other words, how are you doing now? You might have started university and not done great that first term because you were adjusting or you had just moved or whatever the case is, trying to figure out academic writing, but you've completed 30 since that sort of, if I have like 3 courses I didn't do so great in. We're going to calculate the GPA on the most recent completed 30 units. Okay. So I've completed it. I have put it out in the universe. March the 1st pass. When am I going to know? Okay. You're going to know on the basis of your evaluation of the admissions committee. We're going to start making recommendations to the university to say, hey, we want these folks in our program. They're amazing. That's going to be starting March the 1st. That process doesn't finish. So don't think you're going to hear March the 1st. Applications close March the 1st. We're going to continue to make offers through March, April, May, sometimes even into June. Okay. And I just want to say, to recognize that it's a competitive process and not all of our applicants are accepted. And that doesn't mean that you don't pursue your goal and vision of the future differently or reapply the following year. Okay. Once you apply, you're going to have a U of Calgary ID. You're going to have access to your student center. Check it. Check it regularly, particularly after March the 1st. Okay. But even up until then, to make sure that your transcripts are coming in and everything is happening, we are only allowed to communicate with you through your U of Calgary account. So your name is Sally Smith at ucalgary.ca because you've been given you've signed up and gotten that email account, your UCID. That's where we're going to communicate with you. It's not going to be your Gmail account, your, I don't know, Hotmail account, your Shaw account. It's going to be your U Calgary account. So please make sure that you check it, monitor it, and don't forget about it. Okay. All right. That was, I think, the big spiel. I think I was pretty thorough in 31 minutes or less. So we have until 8 o'clock. That's what this was scheduled for. We're going to take a 5-minute break when I sign off from the webinar. You can see on this last slide that you're more than welcome to join us in our Zoom session. That's where I can see you, like your actual faces, and you can see me, and I can, and the student services team with their wisdom experience can help answer your questions. Okay, so you're welcome to join us in that Zoom room. Please do remember that the password is BSW, all caps. Thank you all so much for hanging in through a very fast kind of take through the 2-year BSW program. I'm excited. I'm excited every year to see who's applying and to meet all of you in the Zoom room. You can always email us at fswstudentservices@ucalgary. You can book an appointment with our incredible student services advisors, or you can click on the link to ask the associate dean. That would be me. Every couple of weeks, I have a Zoom session. So it's like my Zoom office. So it's a virtual office. And it's like you knocking on the door and popping in. You don't need to make an appointment, just note the date. I think one's coming up in not next week. Yeah, next week, I think. On Thursday, you can just click on it. You're put into a waiting room. I click on the waiting room, you come in and it's just a one-on-one session. Nobody else is there. Then you leave, next person comes in. So you can also, if you want to talk to me about social work or about your journey or how it can be helpful, please do drop in. I love chatting with students during my virtual noon hour sessions. I will just sit with you and have conversation. So looking forward to seeing lots of you in the Zoom session that's following after a 5-minute break so we can all refresh ourselves. And please feel free to join us, and we'd be happy to answer more questions as we count down to 8 o'clock. So we have lots of time for that. Thank you so much for attending tonight, and I'm looking forward to receiving applications and questions. Take care.